Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hollis Citron, and we are so happy that you have chosen to spend this hour with us. So I am owner and founder of I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing, and I am on a mission to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and empower people, especially adults, to own their voice that come in so many different forms. So this space was created to talk with people with all different jobs, hobbies, and interests, and have conversations about experiences and perspectives, all centered around three questions. 1, how do you define creativity? 2, how do you incorporate it into your life? And 3, why do you think it's important? Then we have a free-flowing conversation, and we see where it goes. So I have had the opportunity to talk to musicians, Reiki masters, mediums, doctor, lawyer, real estate agents, and so many more. And these conversations explore the reality that creativity is not cute, it is necessary. People have defined creativity as their soul's essence, courage, imagination, basically all that we are and want to be. So sharing these stories expands one's thinking and opens up self-expression to feel more empowered, connected, and dare I say, happy. My inspiring guest for today is Xavier Smith. Xavier says, I care and I want to help. And when we connect, it will be proven to you. So let's connect and grow from there. My life is placed at your service. I am not fancy, but I am effective. Xavier, welcome to the space.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hollis. Thank you so much for having me in this space. And, despite all the technical difficulties, I am super duper grateful for you being you.
Oh, well, thank you. And to you as well. I'm so excited for people to learn more about you. So what I read in the intro was so brief. Can you give them a little bit? We're going to find out more about who you are in this talk, but give them a little bit more information about who you are.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. First of all, for those of you who might be listening, I'm Xavier Smith, aka Mr. XL Smith, aka Coach X. And a lot of people say that I have a lot of names, but I only have one mission. I've been sent here to impact, inspire, and improve the lives of others on a daily basis. And how I do that in particular is by, first of all, opening my heart and opening my ears to listen to what people have going on in their lives. And upon them inviting me into their lives, no matter what level, I graciously offer solutions based on the stuff. And what I mean by stuff is I had a heart attack at 29 that I learned some lessons from. I was hit by a drunk driver as a sophomore in high school that I learned some lessons from. And the most important driver for my personal life is the lesson that I had to learn about forgiveness. I went through a 17-year imprisonment sentence. I call that my 17 years of incarceration, although I never stepped one foot in a jail cell. The incarceration that I speak of was that of my mind. For 17 years, I was bitter, I was mad, I was frustrated, I was angry at the world because of what I perceived my parents did or didn't do for me. And so because of that, I realized that I was not living the fullest life that I was, supposed to be living. And so I had to learn how to forgive. And once I did that, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later in the show, but once I learned how to do that, and I actually got on the phone with my parents to let them off the hook, that's the moment my life changed. And push the fast forward button to now. I use everything that I've gone through to help people, whether it's through personal training, nutritional training and education as a health coach, a certified health coach, or whether it's just life skills. I'm trained and certified through Tony Robbins as a life coach. So as you can probably, hopefully tell, I just care and I want to help. And I want to help on any level that you allow me to. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. You said so many words in there that I just can't wait to dive deeper into. Like you said, your one mission, impact and inspire lives on a daily
Yes.
basis. Then you said the importance of listening. Like, I can't
Yes.
wait to dive in and talk more about that. And then forgiveness and talking about being in the driver's seat, like driving your life.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
word perception and imprisonment and incarceration of the mind. I just, this is going to be so friggin' rich. I can't wait. So let's get this started, and we'll start with the
Ooh.
would you rather,
Okay. That
and then
sounds
we'll
good.
dive in with the first. So, okay, Xavier, would
Yes.
you rather run 100 miles per hour or fly 20 miles per hour?
Oh gosh, that's an easy one. I would rather fly.
Would you?
I would. I would rather fly at 20 miles an hour because it allows me to go higher, higher than the problem, higher than, the drama, just higher. For me, that analogy that I just painted in my head when you asked that question was me rising above, like ascension, you know? It's just we
Mm.
ascend to a higher perspective, and it's from that point we can attach ourselves to the frequency of the solution instead of the frequency of the problem.
Ah, I love it. Well, and I was just thinking as you were saying that, like it's quieter up there.
Yes. Oh,
So,
I got a story for that too.
yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So, not too long ago, I did something, wild and crazy, something I'd never done before. And I took a plane ride 2.5 miles above the earth just to jump out of that bad boy.
You did? You
I
did? How
did.
was it?
OMG. This thing, man, I was like, oh my gosh. I was kind of nervous, kind of scared. But I got up there. It took probably about 25, 30 minutes to get up there to the altitude. And then the first 8 seconds was pure turbulence. Like it was just rushing air and it was going past my ears and my mouth was getting filled with air. I had someone on my back, the professional.
Mhm.
And for that first 8 seconds, it's like probably like riding a bull. It's just total chaos. But that ninth second, everything just went whoosh and it turned silent.
Mhm.
And that silence, I was able to, like, I had my eyes open already, but then I was able to see from that higher perspective. And it, like you said, it was quiet. Not only that, it was blissful. And from that moment on, I'm like, OMG, I can understand why people quit their jobs and do this for a living.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
That's amazing. I'm so glad you told that story. And I love that quote that you just kind of put together and said was it was 8 seconds of total chaos. Because
right?
I think that can be really an analogy in so many parts of life that
Yes.
when something's happening, oftentimes in transition of whatever that is, it can seem like complete chaos. And then you get to the calm and you're like, whew, whether it's, wow, that's turned out so much better than I ever thought, or whoa, okay, we're gonna have to pivot and change this. Like whatever that whatever it looks like. But a lot of times in transition, that it can just seem like utter chaos and be very
Right.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed. And I went through that myself. As a young lad going through my teens, raised. I was primarily raised as an only child, and my mom and dad, they got married when they were kids themselves. My mom had me when she was like 19, and
Hmm.
then she was chasing my dad, who was like 4 years older than her, and so because of them trying to figure out their lives, plus having me, I got dumped off on my grandparents, and so there was really not much stability in the earlier parts of my life, being going from my mom's single, duplex house back to my grandparents, back and forth, until I finally ended up with my grandparents for a substantial amount of time. And it was during those years, where I started to develop my own observations, some of my own rules, and some of my own protective mechanisms, because I wanted to be and feel safe. So, we'll have to dive into that a little bit further too. But I'm sure you got some more questions.
I do, but yeah, the protective mechanisms and the safety. I mean, gosh, that's what we all want to feel, right? I mean, we want to feel safe. We
Yes.
want to, it's just a huge part of life. It can show up in so many different ways as anger, and
Oh boy.
it just comes off in so many different ways, but the root of it is very often safety from what I've seen. But okay,
Yes.
so let's dive into this first official question, and then we'll get into all this other amazing parts is how do you define creativity?
Oh man. Well, let me think on that. Take a deep breath. For me, okay, just for me,
Mm-hmm.
when I hear that word creativity, I think of the fact that we are all born as creators. Now we navigate through life, especially in our young, formidable years. We just did stuff because it was fun. We weren't worried about deadlines. We weren't worried about the bosses telling us what to do. We just used our imagination and we created our own reality. So for me, as an adult, I'm doing my best to plug back into that spirit, that frequency that I had as a child. So I can create something for the sake of creation itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
As opposed to creating because, we have a standardized test to worry about and I have to, get the best grade that I can simply because I want to get to the next grade. That's there's a difference between education and learning, I believe. Like
Mm-hmm.
traditional school, and then there's education. And I had the misguided concept that once I graduated high school or college, that I didn't have to go to school and learn anymore. But the truth was, school had just begun when I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and whatever way of thinking well, first, before I dive into that. So I love how you said created your own, how when you were a kid, you used your imagination, life was fun, and you created your own reality. And
yes.
I would love to hear what you'd have to say with all of your coaching and every part of you, just to be able to say, well, as adults, don't you think we create our own realities also?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Whether we like it or not.
Whether that's the point right there. You just hit the nail on the head, Hollis, because now as we get into adulthood, which actually it started back way earlier than that, you're navigating through life. At first, your parents are like, yes, babe, you could do anything you want. And then you get older and society has these rules set upon us. And as you get older, you come up with a crazy idea, and then your parents start saying, well, I don't know about that. I don't know. Because some people will tell you right off the bat, Santa's not real, or something to that effect. But over the years, you start getting jaded because your reality starts getting set in from the people who came before you. And they may be basing what they tell you on their personal experience, whether it's disappointment, heartache, just bad luck. And they're really coming from a place of love because they want to protect you. But they don't necessarily know if that's going to be true for you or not unless you yourself are willing to experiment with it. So you definitely can create your own reality as you get into adulthood, but you have to be willing to put that work in to do, be, or have anything that you want in this world. Because I do believe it's possible, and I myself, I continue to work towards the person that I am becoming.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
definitely does. And again, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before about feeling safe, that when society places, or individuals or whoever it is places these restrictions and is
Mm,
like, Xavier, I don't know if you should do that. Hollis, I don't know if you should do that. They're, like you said, working from their, from their experiences very often, or projecting
yes.
from their perspective. In the end, they want to save you from something,
Mm,
from disappointment, from being hurt, from failure, from whatever that, negative perception is. But yes, we have to be willing to experiment in order to break
oh,
free of that.
yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, you're preaching to the choir because think about it this way: when you want something and you profess it with your mouth, and then you prepare for the worst. Let me put it to you this way: you can say that you want something. Let's say I want $1 million, but I'm prepared to go to the poorhouse. Well, the universe is going to give you what you prepare for.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Yes.
would much rather say claim it with my heart and mouth, and then pretend like the failure doesn't even exist. Now, that's not to say that you won't have some contrast come come your way, but that is specifically built into the process for you to stay hold fast to your vision. Like
Yes.
Thomas Edison, he
Yes.
figured out 3,000 different ways that the light bulb wouldn't work. So, so
Exactly.
you know, you just have to go back to the forefathers and the people who were brave enough to follow their vision, and he's one of them. Then there's a modern day person like Michael Jordan, who's probably goes down in the history books as one of the greatest players on earth to play the game of basketball, but he had a vision towards what he wanted to be, and
Right.
he was willing to do what it took by any means necessary to achieve that. So
Right. Right.
I,
Yes, yeah, it's holding tight. Yeah, holding tight to that vision, and all of the people that go unrecognized in the bigger picture of things. Yeah, it's going through all the adversity and all the I can'ts, and knowing when to pivot, and just being like, yeah, this is going to come to life. I don't know, not knowing the how, not getting stuck on the how, just
mm-hmm.
moving forward. And like you said, be do have. You have to see it. You have to actually be, you have to take the action. You have to do in
Yeah.
order to, it's not like it's just going to come to you and be like, oh, yes, it's all going to fall in my lap and just appear.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, Hollis. When we were kids, we would put on capes and go in the backyard, and that backyard was a whole new world. Now, our parents maybe didn't see it, or the next door neighbor who probably didn't see it, but to that kid, it
Yeah.
was everything. And
Yeah.
so we just have to do the same thing, just as a bigger version of that kid.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about this 17-year-old, these experiences, because I
Oh,
just think that they're important in your growth, where just like these big marker points of the getting hit by
yes.
a drunk driver, heart attack at 29, being in the military for 10 years. Like, tell us more about that world, please.
All right. Well, I guess it all began with me being observant as to where my life was going, and it was probably started as a sophomore in high school. That's about that time where I started discovering who I was and what what I really needed to feel, I guess, fulfilled. Because I would look around, I would observe people, especially at that time of life where we're looking for approval and looking to belong. I started discovering that I didn't really need a bunch of people around me.
Mm,
Like I was okay being alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a difference between lonely and being alone. So we have to understand that that's a distinct difference in energy. But for me, once I discovered that, it was so pronounced, in fact, that my brother, who was the gregarious type, he just fun loving guy, loved to have people around him. When he came to a time when he wanted to say no to somebody, he would automatically defer to me because I had no problem saying no. So through high school, I discovered that I'm okay with not having people around me. However, I was still carrying this story in the back of my mind about my parents, and because I went to a pretty affluent high school, and I didn't come from money, and so here I am in this well-to-do high school, seeing my cohorts, with the latest and greatest sneakers, and I didn't. I came from it was an okay neighborhood, but it took me about 20, 30 minutes on a bus to get from my house to the school. And so I just noticed there was a different demographic there. And so I found myself comparing my story with their perceived story. And I was like, man, my parents sucked. And I blamed it on them. And I did that for 17 years, like through high school, into my 20s. I started becoming awake in my mid 30s, and I'm like, wait a minute. My life I felt like I was at the bottom of the pool with a chain wrapped around my body, and I could hear the music taking place on deck, and I could even see people like having a good time and living their life. But I wasn't. And I wore this fresh out of prison I just looked like I just got out of prison, and I wore that look on my face like 24/7 because, Hollis, I had discovered that face would keep people from hurting me. So my thought process back then was, if my own parents can abandon me or hurt me, then what's to stop a stranger from doing the same thing? So what can I do to keep them from even trying? And so the mean, I guess they call it now, the resting bitch face nowadays. So that look, it worked for me. And there was a few people that tried to break past that veil. And, I would consider them worthy of my time and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I was still the one at the bottom of that pool. And then when I hit my 30s, I'm like, I got to do something to change this. I was no longer willing to put the blame on anyone else. And so I got on the phone. I called my parents and I said, I forgive you. And I hope you can forgive me too. Maybe from this point on, we can be friends. But I have to live. And soon as I hung that phone up, I felt like I lost 100 pounds. And that's when my life changed. And I was willing to put the work in to get my life back. And it began with putting the blame on me because I was the problem, not them.
So much of that, isn't it true? It's like really going inside. So many conversations been having with people has really been just coming back to this point where you have to go in order to be able to connect out. Like just everything that you're saying. I think it's so important, the point that you brought up about comparing stories. Because we don't know other people's stories. We can come up with them based on looks and ideas of what we think is and all of this kind of stuff. But people put up so many fronts to keep themselves safe.
Exactly.
I mean, often those most obnoxious people are the most insecure people, as we know.
Right.
The louder, the more insecure.
Yes, indeed. And I had discovered, about myself. I was never the bully, and I was not the pushover. I was just, the one who I intentionally wanted to stay a little bit below the radar so I wouldn't bring too much of the wrong attention to me. I knew where my strengths were. I was good with talking to people. It was just that bitterness that was, aimed at my parents and then kind of manifesting on everybody else. That was the reason I lost key connections and just lost out on the full fulfillment of my life during that time because I chose to, carry that bitterness story around. But since then, I got, certified as a personal trainer back in 2006, started officially helping people the next year. And then I just kept wanting to go deeper and deeper because I wanted to take people's excuses away. Like the heart attack could have made me a victim, but when that 29-year-old came around and I was, playing basketball as I believe I was at the ASU practice facility when that happened, just getting out of the military. And, I took a jump shot and right after that, the elephant came in the gym and sat on my chest.
So was this is it a hereditary thing or this is just like a...
So it was, we always had hypertension in our bloodline, but I didn't know it because I wasn't the closest to my parents during that time. So I didn't know a bunch about my family history, but no one else had a heart attack at that age or any heart attack for that matter, as far as I knew. But I can attribute that to the poor eating habits that I had developed as a youngster. Now, if we go backwards a little bit and talk about the environment that I was in when my grandparents were raising me, they came from the South. So everything in the household was fried or, purchased at a store. And so I developed those poor eating habits and it just caught up to me. Because, and here's my thinking back then, I was so active in basketball and such that I thought I could out-train my eating habits. And so I would go to basketball practice and then I would go to the donut shop and get a dozen donuts.
Oh my God, we forget that we are what we eat. I mean, it's just that basic, right?
Oh yeah. Yes, indeed. And so, year after year, and then my activity the volume of my activity started turning down as I got older. And here I am I didn't change my eating habits until the heart attack came along and told me, hey, this is your wake up call. Something else needs to change. And so I took that jump shot, had the heart attack, didn't know it. So I just pulled myself out of the game and sat on it. That was a Friday. I sat on the heart attack for 2 days. I didn't go into the hospital until like Monday morning.
What?
Because Hollis, you know what I thought? I'm thinking, okay, here I am, 29 years old. No way this is a heart attack. I'm thinking it's a case of gas or, indigestion or something. So I'm like, let me just cool it down and, it'll go away. So I got up that Monday morning. I'm like, wow, something just don't feel right. So my brother took me to the hospital, Chandler Regional Medical Center in Arizona. And because at the time I was on leave, stationed in Italy, in the Air Force at that time. So they checked me in. Doctor comes back 45 minutes later, all this paperwork in his hand and says, Xavier, you had a myocardial infarction. And I look at him, I'm like, what is that? So I didn't even know the name, what that meant. But when he explained it, subsequently, tears were rolling down my face. I'm like, my whole life flashed in front of me. And I'm like, okay, this is not right. I'm not supposed to be in this situation. And so that's when I started making deals with my creator. I'm like, if you see me through this, I'm going to, make it my mission to help people. And don't you find it funny that when you're in crisis situation, you all of a sudden want to make deals with your creator?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm no exception. I did it. And, but here's the thing, Hollis, when I started receiving those orders from above, it came through in the form of impact, inspire, and improve. Like, so to this day, anybody that will listen to me, I tell them I didn't think of that statement. It was something that was given to me. You know, there's a huge difference between having a thought and a thought having you. And so that was a thought having me. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And then the formation of my company, Excellent Solutions, came about. And I've been dead set on figuring out how to do that for more people than myself. I wanted to make this about something that becomes bigger than even me. And so I keep walking towards that vision every day.
Yeah. I'm just kind of like thinking of like all of these things that you just said. And we do make in crisis situations. It's so true. It's like we're making deals. It's like, I promise if we get through this, if you show me the way, then I'll do this, this, and this. But the difference is there are people that don't follow through with their word. And there are people that follow through with your word. And you are one of the people that follow through with your word and turn this into a life-changing event, which is what's beautiful, which leads us into my next question, which is, we've mentioned some things, but how do you find that you incorporate creativity into your own life?
Well, that's easy for me. You know, my life is built upon questions. And one of the things that I heard Tony Robbins say when I first got introduced to him, is like, if you want a better life, you got to learn how to ask yourself better questions. So I changed my questioning up from victim mindset to victorious. So let me give you an example. A victim would think of their life and all they've gone through and say, why is this happening to me? Because that's what I did. Mm-hmm. But when you have come to the conclusion that you are creating this through your thoughts and your beliefs, and you are able to take responsibility for it, my questioning turned from that to a better question, which was, why or how can I use this for me? And the heart attack, the hit and run drunk driving accident, I didn't even mention that I had a pulmonary embolism as well, a blood clot. Yeah. So a blood clot was lodged in my calf muscle, migrated all the way up into my lungs, and just suffocated me essentially. And that left me in the hospital in the ICU for about a week. And I'm still here. So I'm like, okay, why is this happening for me? And so I turned that into a lesson. And so that's what helped me dive into getting certified as a nutrition coach or health coach, because I wanted to figure out, okay, if this can happen to me, how can I use that to help other people avoid some of the pitfalls that I've already experienced? So,
wow. Again, how old were you with the embolism?
Oh, that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right.
You have purpose, Xavier. I know. You have so much purpose. Like, you are so here, and you're living, you're speaking it. You are just taking action on it. You're showing up like.
Well, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, because, there are some days where I feel like my train has stopped or has gotten derailed, but I realize that is part of the process too. So what you're basically looking at or listening to in this case is somebody who has determined to keep walking towards the vision.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Have you seen that? It's a classic. Have you seen that movie, The Book of Eli?
I haven't. No of it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh, Hollis. I'm going to have to, if you allow me, I'm going to give you an assignment to watch that movie.
Okay.
Because, well, first of all, he's played by one of my favorite actors, Denzel, but his character, he reminds me, when I have those bad days there's going to be a scene that you will know what I'm talking about once you
Okay.
watch it.
Okay.
But so I won't give it away, but you have to watch it. And for those listening, he has a vision and he's just going to fulfill it no matter what. That's all I'm
Mhm.
going to say.
Wonderful. Good. I love movies.
Yes.
So that is, I appreciate that assignment. Well, and I'm glad that you're bringing up, I like people to talk about the humanness of things because
Yes.
things aren't perfect and rainbows and unicorns and da 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 da. We're not focusing on the negative stuff and being like, well, like you said, victimhood. We are mentioning them to then move forward and say, this is the contrast. And exactly how you said is, why is this happening for me, not to
Hmm.
me?
Yes.
It's
There's
like,
such a huge shift in energy
yeah.
when when you start speaking that way, because it will change. Bob Proctor would say, he would use the word paradigm. He would change your paradigm, which is basically a way that there's a particular way that people see the world that they live in. Some people see it through a negative lens. Some people see it through a positive lens, and there's a few people that are in between.
Hmm.
But since I bought into the notion that we can create our own reality, that's what I'm consistently and doggedly going to do every single day.
Yeah. So I love it. I love it. So tell me more about so as we're talking about ways that you incorporate, creativity into your life, tell me about this jumping out of the plane. Is this something that you've been always wanted to do, or is this something that just came up and you're now of the mindset where you're like, I'm not going to hold back. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, it was came by way of an invitation from a friend, and my wife was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Sure." I mean, I'm always open for something that's going to scare me a little bit, and that was one of them. The next thing I might do is bungee jump.
I was just going to ask you, have you bungee jumped?
No, not yet, but you never know.
Have you done zip lines?
Yes, I have done zip lines.
Wow.
That's fun too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's all good. Anything that can change my perspective, and give me just a new way to look at things, then I'm all for it.
So tell me a little bit about your exercising for yourself too, being an exercise coach, being one of that, being one of the many things that you do in the package of everything.
Well,
How do you work that into your own life for you?
well, it's so funny because when I got my certification as a personal trainer, my thought at first was maybe I'll go and work for a huge company. So I, got on the interview path and interviewed with a lot of people who already had, established entities out there, the big box gyms and stuff. But I came away from each interview feeling worse than the one before. So at the end of the day, I was like, these guys have a different agenda than I do.
Mm.
So I just ended up using my past experience. When I was in the Air Force and I would go to the gym there, it was usually crowded and people were talking a lot more than they were working out. So I ended up buying individual pieces of equipment that I saw at the gym and put it in my house. And so I discovered, hey, maybe I could just do this at my place, at my house. And
Mhm.
I would just open up my place and offer it to people, and they would come, and it just started snowballing from there. So it turned into what we call the Mr. XL Smith Fitness Dungeon, and that was what, back in 2007. And that, every time I do that, it's a, I call it my boutique studio, and I use that. That has helped me get over 145-star reviews because I care, and people know it soon after they sign up. But the whole reason I did that is because I wanted to keep myself accountable, um, and I knew that movement was the key to keeping the body healthy. So, long story short, I did it just to keep myself in check. And then it just expanded, because people wanted it. And so I'm like, who am I to stop them?
It's like that. It's like the movie Field of Dreams, build it and they will come.
Right. Right.
But what you brought up about a gym, and I have to say, I'm speaking from, I'm not a, well, me and exercise, but anyway, it needs to be incorporated more into my life. But you made me think of what my husband has said many times in the gyms, because he's been to many and has found one that he really resonates with now. But he'd always say people stand around and talk, and some people are there for like hours.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's either it's hours because they're like working out the whole time, feeling like they need to just be there and be doing all that movement. But so much of it is social time,
Yes.
where they're just hanging out. And he's like, I just want to be able to go in, go out like 30,
Mm.
45 minutes and just be done.
Your husband sounds like he would be a perfect match. Like if he was in Arizona and my place doesn't have mirrors. I only do 30-minute segments, and it's been phenomenal, because the people that I serve, are busy. They don't necessarily want to be like bodybuilders and look like they just got off of the cover magazine, but they do want to feel better. They want to be more flexible. They want to be stronger in the mind, in the body, and perhaps the soul. So I have a mix of just about everything in this 1,000 square foot facility, and it has worked.
Wow. So wait, to tell me, I love that you said that. Tell me about the philosophy of no mirrors.
So for me, it's about you and what you have asked me to help you do. And, I just want to be there and I want to get you to a place where you can fly using your own wings, but it's not about the aesthetics or anything like that. It's more about function. And so a lot of people, this is based off of some of the feedback that I got from people who have come my way. They're like, the mirrors and other people, they intimidate me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to create a safe space where it's just me, them, and the work that I have them do. And it starts from where they can, what they can do, and then we just push them ever so slightly. And everyone is different. So I think that's the huge difference between going to a gym and doing it on your own and coming to somebody like me who can walk with you hand in hand and kind of guide you through, what's going to be good for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Do you do a lot of group? Do you do group classes and individual, or are you?
So, yeah, as a matter of fact, I started with my business with just doing boot camps. Every Saturday I would show up at a park and the ladies would show up and I would, this is the only time that women would do what I tell them.
Oh.
Right.
We are annoying at times, aren't we? So bossy
Right.
pants.
So it was fun, and they benefit, I benefit, and so everybody wins. And then when I got my studio established, it was more one-on-one or small group, one to two. But now that I'm online, I also have an app that people can tap into, and no matter where they are on Earth, as long as they have an internet connection and a phone or some sort of device, I can send them exercise routines and habits. I work with people on developing better habits. So with the advent of the internet, there's no possible way to fail.
Wow. So you have your own app?
I do.
That's just amazing. So you are this personal. What I really like about what you said in the beginning was you're a listener. So here
Yes.
you are really listening and observing what people need. And then you can, through this app, or whether it's in person or virtual, whatever space it is, you can address the needs, whether it's, physical, mindset, nutrition.
Yes. Yes. I tell you I'll tell you that till the cows come home. I'm good at that. What I'm not good at is letting people know I'm not a marketer. I'm a
Mhm.
server, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Have you ever heard of human design?
yes, I have actually.
Because you should get your human design done
Yes.
and find out. I had it done for me, and it's interesting. Anybody who doesn't know about human design, I guess the best way that I can explain it is that it is kind of how you're kind of made up. It's not
Hmm.
like it's not making excuses for anything. It's kind of owning and just under. It helps get a deeper understanding of who you are and why you do certain things.
Right.
So basically, I'm a generator. So in being a generator, I come up with lots of ideas.
Mm.
That's like on a very basic level. That's kind of one of the things which makes so much sense in understanding myself of who I am, and kind of reining it in at times, because I could sit there and be like, oh my God, I've come up with this idea and that idea and this idea and that idea. And it can lead me to not getting a lot done because I'm
Right.
stuck in generating. But if I recognize that I'm a generator, I could be like, okay, so here's this idea. I'm writing it down. I'm putting this away for later. I'm focusing my energy here so I don't get too distracted. It's just interesting. And when I was going through it with a person and really breaking it down, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because
Right.
there's one of them that I don't remember what it's called, where it's basically somebody who's not as vocal, like basically on the marketing end. Um, I forget. It made me think that I wondered if you fell under that category. So anyway,
I, I probably would, you know?
anyway, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I definitely should look into that a little bit more, just because I'm always curious, what's the makeup of a person like me or someone else. And because when I went through my life coach training, we spent a lot of time on understanding who I was, not trying to understand who other people are, but understanding me. And then I have a blueprint on how that takes place in other people, because there are six basic human needs that everybody on earth is under the influence of. And
Hmm.
once you discover what those are and how that person is driven, it's usually one, two, and in some cases three components that a person is driven by. And once I can understand them at that level, then it hopefully it opens the door for more, if they are ready for that type of work.
Hmm. Can you give us, you don't have to maybe give us all six, but could you give us like three of those basic human needs?
Okay, so let's talk about the first one, which is um, variety. We Each and every person on earth needs a little bit of variety in their life, whether it's somebody who jumps out of a plane, or somebody who wants to. Now I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum on a negative aspect. Somebody who needs money, so they decide to rob a bank.
Hmm.
Well, they're actually fulfilling that need for variety in their life. So, on a more extreme level, obviously, uh,
Hmm.
then there's then there's another human need that is for certainty. Like, that's why people get up and do and go to a place that they dread, because it actually pays them, so they feel a sense of security by going to a job that they hate.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they just want to feel secure, and
Hmm.
they just haven't tapped into how they can make themselves secure without going to a job that they hate.
Hmm.
And then another one would be, something like connection, or
Hmm.
they would say connection slash love, because there's a lot of people who confuse the two, thinking that they're in love with someone when all they're really trying to do is get a connection with them. So,
Hmm.
those are some of the three big factors that people are driven by. And when I can help put the spotlight on some of those driving factors and help the person see how they're driven, then it unlocks a lot of, I guess, mysteries to their own life, because a lot of people are living by default and not living by intention.
Yeah. So freaking powerful. Oh my gosh, so much deepness going on. It's
Well,
kind of like if people are willing to be vulnerable, there's so much vulnerability in this. But yeah, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I hope I gave your listeners a little bit of a tease. I do want to make people curious, but yes, I think the time, especially in these days, we have to get back to being okay with being vulnerable, because I think that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
I used to live my life jaded and protective, and I was the one that was losing out. But the world has and society has taught us to be defensive and be skeptical and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to create something that's different.
And you're doing it. So, oh my gosh, as we're getting to the top of the hour. So the third question, which kind of like ties it up and wraps it up in a little bow with all these things that we've kind of touched on already. But so why do you think that creativity is important?
Whew, man. Well, we can just open our eyes and look outside at our current situation right now. Because we have it's like a fork in the road. We can go down the road of, being driven by fear, or we can go down the road of the unknown and practice more of our faith. Faith that I personally see a better day. I'm personally thankful, and I see the world as it needs to be. I don't think anything is broken. I believe that some thought processes might be a little bit broken, but the universe and this globe, this thing that we live on, this planet, is not broken. We just need to understand that this day right here is an opportunity for us to rise higher, like we began the show with. Like when you asked me would I rather fly at 20 miles an hour? Hell yeah, because that way I can rise and attach myself to the frequency of the solution. And when more of us like you and me and the other creators out there start to do that, oh boy, look out, world. It's about to change.
Look out. Oh my gosh, two things I just thought of while you were talking. One is just silly. My daughter, 18, she's just like, Mom, we just live on a rock. Like, what is this? We just live on a rock. I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of true, actually. She's like, why do we take things so seriously? I'm like, I know. So whatever metaphor, however you want to look at that, she makes me laugh when she says that. But recently, I heard someone yesterday actually saying, which was she works with dolphins and whales, and she was talking about how they've been around for millions of years. And when you look at the human race, basically, we've been here for like 250,000 or something like that, or whatever. Yeah. She's like, we're basically babies, compared to, how long so much of these other species have been around.
Right.
So we're growing, we're evolving, it's a constant, one would hope we're constantly expanding.
Yes. Well, I think, if I may, I think that's inevitable. However, some of our thinking, gets us to believe that we're not, or, some of us might think that we are. But I believe that the growth part of that is inevitable. But when we start making conscious decisions to tap into that consciousness and do something with it, that is where the magic happens.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's so much of what we've just talked about is really conscious, owning it, forgiving, and whatever that looks like. And being very conscious.
Right. Yeah. Because that way you can actually start to see that I can drive my world. I can drive my own personal experience into something that's better for myself, better for my community, and better for the universe as a whole. But we can't go through life wanting other people to change. It has to come from within.
Yes. Xavier, thank you so much for spending this hour chatting with me and us.
Well, no, thank you for having me on and just letting me be me.
Oh my God, I love it. And I love all that you're doing, and just truly grateful. Can you tell people how they can connect with you, please?
Well, the easiest way, and I'm just going to give you a disclaimer, I am revamping my website, but it's still there for people to tap into. But it's not the prettiest thing right now.
It's okay.
Going back to our real conversation about, the humanness of things, that's always evolving. So I'm working with someone to change that. But you can always find me at mrxlsmith.com. And that's MRXLSMITH.com.
And what's great is you do things, there's every aspect, either in person, virtual, through an app. Like, there's so many ways to work with you.
Oh my gosh, yes. I really want to emphasize that I'm here to listen first. Think about how we were designed, Hollis. We were designed with 2 ears, 1 mouth. So that tells me I'm supposed to listen twice as much as I talk.
I love that. Not everybody knows that, but yeah, in the sense of not many people take that to heart, but we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Right.
Man. So, okay. So before I wrap this up and say the goodbyes, is there any words of wisdom that you feel like you want to share right now, or?
It's funny that you asked, because I just posted this as a last sentence on one of my posts on Facebook, but it's this: remember to have fun with life, because if you're not mindful, life will have fun with you, and it's usually at your expense.
There we go. Perfect way to end this wonderful hour of chatting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So thank you to all joining us live, those catching the replay. This space is all about inspiring each other, connecting, and sharing stories. I believe we have always needed this, but I think we need it now more than ever. So please follow, share the goodness so we can lift each other up. And just remember that, we're all in this together. So yes, wherever you are in this world, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, and look forward to connecting again soon. So goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Feeling inspired? There are so many ways to do things for you, to get yourself moving, to get your creative juices flowing, and to have fun. Check out I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing. Go to IamCreativePhilly.com, IamCreativePhilly, PHILLY.com, and check out the experiential kits. Check out Creative Shui, which is all about creative inspiration and guidance. And for Express Yourself Publishing, there's so many multi-author book opportunities. So I would love to chat with you so much. Everybody's creative. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an expression, and I can't wait to meet you. Thank you so much for taking this hour to listen to our stories and share the energy. And I wish you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in this world. Bye, everybody.